How you doing, everybody? Chris Ramirez here. Region Sports on the road this morning, and we are out at Fort Pioneer, up along Calumet Avenue, far north side of the city of Hammond, in an area known as Robertsdale. Why are we at Fort Pioneer today? Well, if this were Brooklyn, Ebbets Field would be closed and about to be demolished. And that's what's going to happen here at Fort Pioneer. Clark Pioneers football team and baseball team down there, but in particular the football team has been playing in this location, had played in this location for close to 90 years, going back to the early 1930s. It's now closed. The school is now closed, has been for a couple of years. I think this is the second year, third year, either or. There's going to be some development here, and no more football field. This particular field, Pioneer Field as we know it right now, opened in 1974. Got a couple of players from that team that we're going to be talking to coming up here as we sort of relive and retell the story of Fort Pioneer. It's situated between Wolf Lake on Calumet Avenue. It's Lake George over to the east. Beautiful Robertsdale type neighborhood just to the north, and a lot of industry to the south. And it's way here in a preserved old part of town that if you haven't been up here, you got to come give it a look. Maybe bring your bicycle. There's plenty of trails up here. But if you want to take a trip back in time, Robertsdale is the place to do it, Robertsdale and Whiting. And this is part of it. So the part of the history here is going to get wiped out as they bring the field down, as they bring bleachers down and change this. The field house over here will also be down again. I'm not exactly sure what's going here, but some sort of development. I believe it's housing. I'm not quite sure, but either way, the football field, the track, the field house, and the press box where I worked a number of games is also going to be coming down. So kind of a sad day up here on the north side of town. And if you're a Clark, former Clark player, this place is something special to you, I'm sure. I've heard from a lot of you guys, and a lot of great memories here. So we will have some people to talk to coming up that played on this field, coached at this field, and even some guys that were on the very first team here at Fort Pioneer back in 1974. So a whole lot coming out. We're going to have a number of videos, number of interviews. We're going to try to make this more of a celebration than a funeral. All the great memories that place here, we're going to do our best to recapture and retell a few of those. So stick around. There's plenty more to come here from Fort Pioneer as Region Sports hits the road. And we'll be back for more on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
Did you know?
They decorate over 210,000 cakes a year.
Did you know?
Their butcher will cut your meat your way.
Did you know?
They have trained floral designers in store.
Did you know?
They will make your wedding cake.
Did you know?
They have a variety of deli bakeable entrees.
Did you know?
Their online app has coupons and so much more. Who does that?
Strachan Van Til. Now you know.
Hi, I'm Crowell Company's Lantern Man. I'll cover your motorcycle. I'll be with you on the water. I'll be with you on the snow. I'll cover your insurance needs wherever you go. I'll be at Crowell Agency from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. As Crowell Company's Lantern Man, I'm your insurance superhero.
Crowell Companies, the insurance professionals in Highland, Maryville, and Michigan City.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Region Sports on the Road. Chris Ramirez here with Tom Geffert. And Tom is a graduate of Clark High School, played in the very first game here at Fort Pioneer. We're going to talk to him about that and more. Tom, thanks for joining us.
No problem. I'm glad to be here today. A little sad, but I'm glad.
Yeah, it is very sad, and we're going to get your thoughts on that. If you recognize the name Tom Geffert and you're a little younger, it's Ben Geffert's dad, and everybody knows Ben from Griffith, now up at Cal College and all of that. So we're going to talk with Ben. He's the first generation, played on this field right here, 1973.
73.
November the 8th, you opened up against Lake Central.
Lake Central.
What do you remember about that night, Tom?
It was probably about 20 degrees out, and it was cold, raining, sleeting. I remember Voris had his receivers sticking their hands in ice buckets. He had buckets of ice to get them used to the cold. You know, I remember Joe Gaylor had his hands were frozen before the game started, but he was
Old
just
school methods there.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk more about that coming up here, but not right now. But okay, so 1973, November 8th, Lake Central first game, brutal weather night.
Yeah.
What else do you recall about that night, Tom? What positions did you play?
Let's see, you played.
Or what didn't you play? It might be a shorter list.
Yeah, we always had small teams, so there was always everybody went both ways. Offensive guard, defensive end. I did the place kicking, extra points, kickoffs, and I punted too. So I was
rarely left the field.
Pretty much on the field all the time there. But it was fun, you know. But like I said, we were used to that. When I think my sophomore year, we only had like 24 guys on a football team. When Elmer Britton came at first, and then Nick came over after 2 years at Elmer.
And then 1973. So most of your games, all of your games, I guess, that season, up until the home game on November 8th against Lake Central, were on the road as they were redoing and remaking the new Fort Pioneer field. What was the field like for players before this field was
prior? Well, it was like playing in a slag field. Because since we're surrounded by steel mills, there's a lot of slag, and I think this might have been a dumping ground or something. But you know, as you're playing, and you know, you'd play there, these slag boulders would work their way up into the playing field. So every once in a while, you had a little rock. You know, hopefully you didn't hit your head on it or your knees or whatever. It'd tear you up pretty good. But yeah, that's just how this was, and it was like playing on a concrete surface. It was hard.
You guys use that as a home field advantage? You knew where those...
We knew where sometimes we planted some.
Let them run the play this way.
Not really. 7 years is over, so we can bring all that out.
Well, if you see right here, Nathan, if you could pan around, they've started the demolition here at Fort Pioneer. Not sure exactly how many seasons total were played here at this facility. We're going to add that up and tell you about that a little bit later. But it's all coming to an end here. And we're going to have a number of Clark Pioneer players, former players that we're going to talk to, coaches as well, and kind of tell the story of Clark football, in particular the years here at Fort Pioneer. Such a great little cool part of town up here in Robertsdale. Where are you from, Tom? Where'd you grow up?
In fact, I'm a block away, right down Lake Avenue on 121st. So I walked here. You know, I played here as a kid, you know, in grade school. Then, you know, I said the high school thing, I would walk to school and then walk to football practice. So that was the reason my dad never got me a car. So,
you had the perfect excuse, right?
I walk everywhere, yeah. But like I said, yeah, like I said, a block away from this place, you know. So this was my backyard.
Well, if you can, being that you're from here and you go all the way back, tell us that I come up here. The neighborhood, has it changed much? It seems to be, you know, a throwback to the 60s and 70s. When I leave my area, my house, my neighborhood in Highland, it's 2023. But when I get out of my car up here, it's like 1973 all over again.
Well, because you still got a lot of the old timers here. Hell, you know, my parents have passed since then. But like I said, right down the street where I live right next door to me, where my grandma and grandpa and my uncles and aunts are still there. So, you know, those, you know, and that's, you know, if I'm coming here, that's when I'm coming to see them. And so, you know, that part hasn't changed. You know, a little bit has changed around here, but there's still a lot of the old Bushas and grandma, grandpa. What's a grandpa name? There's Busha, whatever, that's grandma. But the Stari Jots and Stari Kres. But all the Slovaks are still here. A lot of the old timers are still here. So, you know, and, you know, you still got St. John the Baptist, you know, church and stuff. They all, you know, head there. And so, yeah, this is pretty much stayed on an even keel. You know, it's a great little neighborhood.
Yeah, it sure is. It's still a great little neighborhood. It's, you know, it at least to me, when I come up here, it reminds me of the past, but it's so well kept up. It's modernized, but yet it keeps that kind of old school, old world sort of feel to it. Now, as far as this goes here, all these seasons, all the memories on here, we're going to talk a lot about these coming up in the days ahead. But any idea, Tom, what's going to happen here to this facility now? Have they any word on that?
I haven't. Like I said, I'm living up in Griffith now, and I haven't really. It's always some homes, single family duplexes. I think they're still in a planning stage on what to actually do with this area.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Ebbets Field in Brooklyn became apartments. And if this becomes homes, I think to me that says a lot for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If there's a need to build a new neighborhood. And that's basically what you can do here with this amount of space, if that's what ends up getting used. And again, I think that speaks volumes for the neighborhood, the area.
They're going to probably go, it's go at a high price because it's, you got a lake right across the street. You got stuff, going on with the Hammond Park Department over here, so you'd be right in the middle and you got access to Whiting, again, walking distance there too. So what a perfect spot. You got Chicago right down the street. So you'd probably have a big influx of people coming to want to make, put some roots down here.
I can see it, absolutely. You mentioned Wolf Lake right across the street. Great new pavilion, a lot going on over there, the bike trails all around, a lot of public use of that facility. I'm an 83 high school graduate here in the region, and I don't remember it being that cool back in the day. Growing up here, what was Wolf Lake back then?
It wasn't. It was a lake with a parking lot and a couple swing sets. And that was it, because I said I remember going, even with my present wife, we would go and swing on the swings over here. And that was about it. But like I said, progress comes and
positive change, if anything, right there.
Want to do, give it a little more accessible to people and make it nicer. That's you can't knock that.
And they have done that, absolutely. Yeah. So, Tom, if you can, mention a few of your teammates that you remember that you created memories with out here.
Well, you got Fred's over here, Fred Behrens, Butchie Kovac. Played with him in high school. You got Rick Zahner, Drew Kalapak, Kurt Schoenig, Jerry DeLuna, all of these guys, that sometimes I still, some that haven't passed away, but, I still see them every once in a while at some doings, And we had, Donnie Haig, he's passed. A lot of the good guys have gone, and, it's sad to see that happening. But like I said, it's getting to the age now where a lot more of us are probably going to be going. But
hopefully not too soon, though.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of good times, close friends, good close camaraderie. That's I can say about the teams that I was on. We had our troubles, but it seemed that these guys stuck together all the time. It was I don't know how it is now. I think it's a little more looser. You don't get the time, the teamwork, the tightness that you used to, because I think a lot of the things that we went through now or then are probably not legal to do now. As far as putting the time in on the field, the amount of hitting you did, the amount of physical.
The type of physical activity that you would do. I don't
want to say abuse, but the type of physical activity you did was a lot harder than it is now, and there's a lot more to it.
So, yeah, I don't think teams and practices now, I don't think teammates are trying to knock each other out the way they were back in the day. How hard can you hit him hard enough so that he doesn't get up, so that he's not conscious? I don't think that happens even in games as much now.
Talking to my son Ben, when he was coaching in high school, it was like you could only practice so many days. You couldn't practice more than twice, 3 times. We were out here for the entire day. We sort of lived out this way, and so you hit hard every day. There was no shorts and t-shirts and helmets. It was full pads all the time.
Talking about the early 70s here with Tom Geffert. He played under Nick Voris, and Nick is legendary. Coach Voris is legendary for nothing else than his hardcore old school methods.
And he was that. And like I said, he's another one of the guys that you either love the guy or you hate the guy. There's no in between on him, and he didn't care whether you did love them or hated him. It didn't matter to him either way. But that's how he was. And like I said, when he first came here, that was my senior year, and the thing I most remember about him, I learned a lot from the guy. He's a great guy. I'm one of the guys that loves him, and we were out practicing at Forsyth Park because we couldn't practice here because they were redoing the field, and it was like the first practice of the year, and we're out there in full pads, and all of a sudden, for no reason, he's hey Geffert, take a lap, and I'm thinking, what the hell did I do? You know, so I must have ran for like 20 minutes.
Hey, Coach, you remember I'm still running.
And, you know, I'm just running there. They kept out practice, and he ignored me the whole time. I just was circling the field, you know, back and forth, and I'm, you know, dying. And I never knew, and I couldn't figure out why. He never told me why he did it until I was, I think, a freshman at University of Indianapolis, and he came down to see a game. And I said, you know, he was friends with Coach Bless at the university. And I said, Coach, I says, you know, I said, after all this time, I said, why did you make me run? And he goes, well, he goes, I knew your reputation. You know, I was the captain of the football team as a junior year. And he says, I knew that, you know, the guys followed you. And he goes, so I had to cut your legs out from underneath you to prove that he was the top dog. You know, so it was him. I wasn't going to be running the team.
If he do that to you, imagine what he would do to them.
If he could do that to me, he had all them guys land. And I guess it worked. But like I said, for the life of me, did not understand, you know, what the hell I did. You know, all of a sudden I'm running. You know, Geffert, take a lap. And then just the lap lasted for like 20 minutes, a half hour. I said,
you got punished for being the leader.
But like
that's
I said,
some old school stuff right there.
Those were his ways and means. And like I said, you know, like we said, we're sitting there with the things, and he taught me that too. He says, you know, when if you get confrontation with somebody, always keep your hands in your pocket, because that way you're less likely to punch somebody.
Wow,
yeah, you know, he had his ways, you know. But like I said, I learned a lot. I respect the guy. And like I said, yeah, I think more so a lot of the stories that came out after that the next year. I think he was a little more verbal and a little crazier.
Is that right?
The second year around.
One thing that amazes me about that is nowadays you got 24 kids. You got to put your arm around them at a football practice. And you guys had just a couple of dozen players. You told me. So that a coach could get away with being that hardcore is impressive. That nobody would walk out on him.
Well, initially, you know, with Vorse, and I think that was everybody was like that. You know, I spent years, grade school, high school, you know, with somebody's hand in my face mask, dragging me around or pulling me this way, pulling me that way, or taking a, you know, give me a shove and stuff, which you can't do that anymore. But back then, that was normal. That was normal. You know, I remember in grade school, Tom Puplava, I think, was coaching St. John the Baptist School. And my mom coming out of the field, or, you know, after practice or after a game, because we were doing warm-ups, and he would walk on, you know, we'd do leg lifts, and he'd walk on your stomach as you're doing leg lifts. And you know, and then he'd stand there like this, you know, he was maybe about 180 pounds at the most, but you were doing leg lifts, and that's, you know, to toughen up your gut. And my mom, she thought that was the worst thing. I was getting abused out there, and I was so embarrassed by her coming out there.
Nowadays, kids be screaming, "Mommy, come get me!"
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that stuff now, but they would do stuff like that, you know. But that was the norm. That was accepted, you know. And sometimes I think that's a lot of that stuff should still be accepted, you know, because you gotta.
I'm with you. If you're going to play, if you sign your kid up to play football, let the coaches toughen them up.
That's what it's about. It's about hitting people. You
That's
know?
what it is. Well, one last thing on football. So Clark Pioneers played at this facility. What I want to know, the Whiting game, obviously, you know, it's Clark and Whiting. That's the big rivalry game back then. I think it was last week of the season. Is that right?
Yeah, it always tried to make it the last week of the season. That was like the climax of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was before the all-in tournament stuff and everything else. So obviously that was the premier game on the schedule. But for the players and for the team, what was the game that meant the most to win? Was there something other than the Whiting game, I think, to the community, I guess? But how about to the team? Was it Hammond High? Was it East Chicago Roosevelt? Was it the Whiting game?
I think it's a Whiting game.
Yeah.
Because, you know, at that time there's no playoffs, there's no big deal with that stuff. And that was such a deep-seated rivalry forever. You know, that was always a big thing. You go back when I was a little kid, they talk about the Whiting Clark game. And I think that overshadowed all the other games, because there was really nothing, you know, you could lose your whole season, but if you won that Whiting game, it's like Bears-Packers shit. stuff. And it's like you can lose the entire season or have a losing record as long as you won that whiting game.
The rest of the off season and everything was okay.
So I think the whiting game is pretty much the goal for everyone.
So one of those you can go 9-1 as long as that one's not against whiting, or you can go 1-9 as long as that one.
Because you got to live with these guys. The whole you're living in the same town. It's not like somebody from Hammond, or Geffert or something like that.
So you're not bumping into those guys just you're driving around or hanging
in the
out.
same place. You're driving down to 119th Street. You ran into those guys all the time. So it was some serious stuff, back then.
Well, great. We're looking to talk more on that too. I love the Clark and Whiting rivalry. Nathan even has an idea of something we're going to work on. We started during COVID called Ceasefire, the history of the Whiting-Clark rivalry as it came to an end. So it's something that's on the plate we'll get to later. Maybe we'll call you back for that as well.
Yeah, well, gladly. We got a couple stories about the Whiting.
We're having a great time out here at Fort Pioneer. Unfortunately, we're not here for the happiest of occasions, but we're going to try to celebrate what happened here rather than mourn the loss of the field. But if you look around, you can see that demolition has started. The rest is going to come in the days ahead. So we'll try to document as much of that as we can. And we'll have Fred Behrens coming on. The Chief will be with us. He was on that 74 team. A bunch of other pioneers are going to join us. We're going to get guys from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And most of the guys that have coached that are still around, we're going to get a word with. I think we just talked to Phil Mason the other day, and a couple of the other guys we've spoke to want to give their thoughts as well on what it meant to be part of the Clark Pioneer program. So, Tom, thanks for giving us some time and coming out. We appreciate it. Great seeing you.
Glad to be here.
And hopefully we get a chance to talk again some more about this. So, all right, everybody. Region Sports is on the road today. We're back with more here on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
Region Sports Network, the only game in town.